fact, that was.
No more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
What's up, horror fiends? Your boy Ricky Grimes back with Horror Fiend TV. Three Corners of Horror, back here with another episode. We got our good friend Angel from Voices from the Mausoleum back with us. What's up, Angel? What's good?
How are you guys? I'm like super pumped about this.
I know. We always have a good time when we come on. I think we did Nope the last time.
Yes.
Before that, we did Black Phone. I did go back and I looked at that rope scene. Trust me, I'm not letting that go. What up, Joe, the psychologist, my brother? How are you, bro?
I'm good. I'm actually looking forward to talking to this one because, I mean, honestly, it's divisive.
It's cool because it's different to talk
It
about.
is very different. This is one of those, it is for interpretation, so it just matters how deep you look into it.
Cool. And before we start, I want to say JR was with us, but he was having computer issues. So he'll be back next week. So JR, you'll catch us on the rewind.
Gonna miss you.
Yeah. What we're going to be talking about today, the Shudder original film Skinamarink, written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball. The budget for this was $15,000, and guess what? It grossed over $2 million. That's a win for the horror community, if you ask me. And guess what, Joe? Guess where this is from, Joe? Where's it from, Joe?
Canada.
Canada.
You know I love my
Canada. Edmonton, Alberta, to be exact. So let's get this going. We're going to get started with the initial thoughts first, what we thought about this film. Angel, you go first because you are our guest of honor. What's good?
Yeah, so I think my initial thoughts on this, I went in trying to be pretty level-headed because I was seeing, it's like you said, very divisive. I'm seeing people are like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, and people are like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And I went in prepared for experimental horror, which is what I would constitute this as. I think this film, for what it is, it works better than a lot of films that try to do similar things as far as statement horror that has a message. And it's got some found footage elements, which is like totally my jam. I love found footage. And so it kind of hit a lot of things for me personally from my life when I was growing up. It invoked a lot of emotions. It made me very unsettled. There's a couple of times where I had to take breaks. Like I just kind of paused and walked away and came back. I thought the kids did a great job. The atmosphere is like really, really catching. Like, I don't know. I was surprised how much I got out of this film and how much I had to say about it when it was over.
Oh man, you just got me more excited about this conversation.
Yeah.
Very similar thoughts on my end, but we'll get to that. Joe, how about you, brother? What you got? When you first saw this.
All right. So I watched it 3 times. The first time, I'm not even gonna lie, all of you, when you're watching it, you're like halfway going, what the fuck? Like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
So I pretty much say your first watch is almost like a wash. You get some information until you watch it a couple other times. The first time I fought to stay awake. I had 20 minutes left to the movie, and I literally fought to stay awake.
You make it?
I made it.
Oh, you fought.
But then I decided that the next time I was going to watch it was going to be during the day. At moments where I'm not going to be able to fall asleep because I'm tired or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah.
The other watches appreciated it more. It could have been shorter.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say that. And if you're going to watch this, I highly, highly recommend putting on the closed caption.
Subtitles.
100%.
Subtitles.
I thought you were going to say smoke a joint before you watched it.
No, that too. That helped.
Yeah, the subtitles I couldn't agree with more. By the way, I've only seen this once. I didn't see it
once?
Yeah.
As I said, the first time I was kind of like, what did I just watch? Like,
yeah,
I'm
bro.
not sure here,
I saw it 3 times as well, only because I fell asleep the first time.
What?
I fell asleep the first time. The second time, I fell asleep again.
My God.
The third time, I took Joe's advice, and I watched it sober. And not during the day. I got a rule. I cannot watch horror during the day. I'm a horror fiend. I have to watch horror at night.
I get that, but when you come over here, when you come visit, you're going to see that I have put things on my windows and stuff that
Because
I
you're
can
a
make
fucking
it.
vampire, bro. Come on.
I can make it dark in the middle of the day for you to watch a movie like you're watching it at night. So I promise you
I'll
that
keep that in
that
mind.
you won't even notice that you're watching a movie in the middle because it'll be so dark in here.
But my initial thoughts real quickly. Yeah, I feel it's not because the movie was bad or anything, but it's because the style of film it is. It requires a lot of patience. There's no middle ground. Either hate
I
it
agree.
or you love the film. Now, I
Yep.
hated this fucking movie, but I also love this fucking movie. So I don't know where I fall in this stuff. Angel said it. It's an experimental film, right?
Yeah.
I love that because the
Mhm.
director he took a child's nightmare and put it to film. And we were all kids. We know we had nightmares like that. We had dreams like that. And I think that was awesome. The novelty to me, what happened was it wore off pretty quickly because it's so long. You said it.
It is
This will
long.
work better as a shorter film, but because I can't
Hour
watch these
27.
long, drawn out shots of a corner or a bookcase.
Yeah.
After a while, you're like, at least for me, I'm like, oh my God.
You want something more.
I'm just dozing off and I'm like, oh my God. Like, and it's not that it's boring. It's just like, you're just watching, it's like watching paint dry, but the most exquisite paint you would ever find. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to keep watching, but you're fighting it. But that again, it's not a terrible film because I don't say these movies are terrible. It's subjective.
Yeah.
It's subjective. It's art, you know. You didn't see a lot in it. There's very little dialogue. I believe it's like 500 words or less in this film spoken,
Yeah.
and most of
Not
it's all
much.
whispered.
Mhm.
And you see ankles and legs and the behind the shots, corners, bookshelves, toys, all types of cool shit too thrown in there for your imagination to run wild. But what did you think about the way they shot this film?
All right. So the first time I watched it, it was driving me a little nuts because I wanted to see more. So you're relying on using what you're hearing to help you create what you're not seeing.
Yeah.
Kind of what he was doing here.
Yeah.
But then on the second, especially the third watch, you're seeing the angles of a child's view.
Yep.
It's not an adult's view. It's all a child's view. There's a scene where Kevin walks to the door and the doorknob just seems so far away. And it was when I saw that I go, oh, so all that looks up is how a child. Now, he exaggerated the below because you got to see the feet.
Which is
However,
too low.
it's too low. I didn't like the lowered perspective of it. At the same time, though, like when you saw the kid's feet, I can get it because there's the innocence in there. So the way that it was shot was basically you're seeing the angles of how a child would see things. It's probably one of the biggest qualms people had with this movie is the angles of it. So if you didn't realize that you're looking at a movie that the way a child would see things, you're missing that.
Yeah.
So if you saw it and you're watching this, watch it again and put yourself in the perspective of a child looking up in all those scenes.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I definitely intend to watch this again. How about you, Angel? What you thought about the way this film was shot?
So I have a couple of different thoughts on it. One of the things is going into this film. I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's a horror game called Among the Sleep.
Never heard of it. No horror game.
It's a horror game.
Ooh, boy, I gotta
You
look it up.
play through the perspective of a toddler. And it's a toddler that gets out of bed at night and goes, and there's, spooky things about it. It's kind of like a survival kind of horror game. You have to hide, solve puzzles, that kind of stuff. But it's very much the video game version of this movie.
Nice.
Which some of that I'll save for my different thoughts later for the next part. But so going into this, I immediately knew what the point of view was from because I've seen it before.
You played the game, so
yeah. So I knew because I was like, this reminds me so much of Among the Sleep,
That's cool.
and then
That's
how you play. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's there's parts in the game where the mom picks the baby up and the mom's face is like right here because you're the toddler. And the low was the crawling, that kind of stuff. So I kind of was already like,
I didn't pick that up.
Holy crap. So that's the Lolo.
Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
and because you have to think too, when children are, because we're talking a 5 and 7-year-old or 5 and 8-year-old or something like that. They're, you know, I think that's the 4. I'm sorry, 4 and like 7 or something. But anyway, but you know, like I have a 4-year-old son, and he definitely still does that when he's playing, when he's looking for things, when he's pretending. He gets down really low like that. So it's so my head was there because of the video game. The other thing I have toyed with, and I don't know if this was the intent, but I think this is something you could theorize and argue for, is that there are found footage films that have camera angles that are from the perspective of something we never see. So like from the entity, from the whatever that's in the story. So I also went kind of back and forth in my head about this being a weird view between the kids' perspectives and the perspective of something that we don't see. So I kind of went back and forth with that. But I think that I really liked this. It didn't lose magic for me because I think we naturally are like wanting to see what's going on. We want to see more. We need to see. That's why shots in darker pictures work so well, because we're just like, we're trying to like see what's there. We're trying to like pick it, you know, and it also builds like the atmosphere, because the not knowing is what makes you uncomfortable because you can't see. That's why looking under the bed when it's pitch black is scary. Looking into a closet when there's no light is scary. Going out into a hall. And these are all things that are very childlike mentalities, but then they carry over into our adulthood. Like, I'm very afraid of the dark in real life. I sleep with lights on. Like, I'm not kidding. My bedding on my bed, you can see crystal clear under my bed. There's nothing in the way of being able to see under my bed. And these are things that I've just carried over from childhood stuff. That's and cool. So like, you know, so all of these things, like the not seeing and the angles and the focusing on the toys and the focusing on the random things that we see are all play into this notion that we're supposed to be experiencing this through the eyes and mind of a child. So I thought it was very effective in that way. And it definitely took me back to some things that I felt when I was a child. And so it just like that part of it, like really got into my skin. Like it settled there and it like stayed there. And it was really effective for me.
I do this as an adult now, but as a kid, when you're in the dark, you start seeing things in the dark. Yeah. And like I don't know for you guys, but like when Kaylee was talking to the mom, and she was sitting, I go to Adam, do you see someone like rubbing her hair right now? He goes, no. I'm like, you don't see that?
He's fucking with you, man.
No, but that's what happens with your child's imagination.
It's like if you're in a car driving
in the dark.
Yes, in the car is the perfect example.
And you look at the clouds, they always form something. Like that's what I took from that. Yeah. And I immediately though, what I love too is the lack of sound. The ambience was amazing in this film.
So true.
You know me, if I love old school grindhouse B movie shit. I love the old broken like sound of the crackling speaker throughout the entire film. That drove people crazy. That was soothing to me, though.
I liked it.
That's why I fell asleep, because I love that sound. Well, and yeah,
go ahead.
And the fact that I loved in the beginning of the film, the director puts in there all the cartoons and stuff, where it's all public domain. We didn't have to pay for any of this. Yeah, come on, man. 15,000. He turned it into a $2 million.
By the way, that cartoon was a whole other character in this movie.
Yeah, because the cartoon,
Adam even said it made the cartoon.
It was a metaphor
feel
for everything
more
that was going
unsettling.
On. For example, when the I forgot what it was, but the cartoon, when the animated character kept opening the door over and over and over and over again, and that's in the film. Joe, I'm gonna throw it to you real quick. This film here now. What this film was, there's no fucking plot in this film, for one. I think this film is made for each individual to put their own spin on it, their own perspective from your own childhood. What I think it's about is going to be probably different. What did you think this film was about? Like, what did it talk to you about?
So as you guys said, it's all for interpretation. So for me, these were the final moments of a family. Because I think that the father actually killed the mom and the kids. Okay. When Kevin's on the ceiling and he sees the blood over and over and hears a scream,
Yeah.
I think that he saw his mother getting killed and his world was turned upside down. Hence, he was on the ceiling and the image you got was happening on the ceiling. The phone call with the father saying it was an accident, for me, I think that the father did something to him. And actually, we were watching a nightmare or a dream of a child who was in a coma, because when you saw the number of 572 days and then everything started going white, that was how many days he was in his coma before he died and went into the light.
Can I just interrupt 1 second?
Go ahead.
Are you saying he went into a coma after he fell down the stairs, or off screen? Because
no,
see,
and that's okay. I think the father did something to him, but so if you when you deal with child abuse, or if you grew up in that kind of environment, you can somehow interpret situations a different way.
Yeah.
So in the coma, dream, or nightmare that he was having, his father didn't do that to him. He fell down the stairs. So the child changed the situation, but knew that his mom was dead. Again, when you saw that blood splatter, especially like I'm like, that's what that fucking is. He saw his mom get killed. That's what that blood splatter is. So that's what I think the movie is pretty much about, is because again, he's so young. It's if he's having a dream or a nightmare, he's not going to have it the way we have it. We've all lived long lives. Mm-hmm. His nightmares are going to be pretty much from angles and perspective of what his everyday life is, which is in a house. It's not in the outside world the way that we've all been. So that's why you got all those angles, because those were angles like when he opened his eyes and looked around in his house, that's what he saw. Yeah. So that's what I think this movie was about. Literally, is that the father ended up killing the kids and the mother. The entity part, I can't answer that part for you. So I don't know if the entity part could just be part of the nightmare. Maybe one of you two.
Well, let's see.
Figure out the entity part, but that's what I think this movie was about.
All right, talk to me, Angel. Does the entity take place somewhere in your perspective of this, or you got your own?
Yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere totally different.
Awesome.
So, okay. So, my interpretation of this film is that it is a very kind of, for lack of a better word, artsy way of depicting what child abuse and neglect look like from the perspective of a child. For example, the normal parts of a house disappearing, things like doors, windows, bathrooms, like these very like normal parts of a house that keep showing up and disappearing and ending up in these weird places. To a child that is in an abusive situation, the doors and windows don't exist. There's no one there that's going to hear them or see them to come save them. They're completely abandoned and alone. And I felt like I got the first sense of abuse when, like, the very beginning of the movie, when the father, you've got Kevin who gets up because he sleepwalks, gets up, goes and back. I think he goes back to his room. And then you hear the dad, middle of the night, say the daughter's name as he goes into her room and closes the door. And it's the only scene like that happens. And it left such a horrible taste in my mouth, because I felt like my cat's scratching and shaking my camera. Stop. Sorry. I felt like that part was like telling us that why in the middle of the night when a daughter is sleeping, why would that happen? And so it was the only moment like that happened. She was this, kind of figure of like, and when you're in a situation of abuse and there's a sibling, like almost naturally, the older one always takes over the situation, because there's just something in them that will tell them like, I need to take care of my sibling. Like, this is really bad stuff. And so that's why we get like our perspectives of her going to see what the noises are, going to see what the bumps and the movements are that we hear when they're in the living room downstairs. And so, like, one of the scariest scenes to me, like, ever in the whole film, was the scene where Kaylee goes upstairs and she looks and the dad's on the bed. I was like, I don't really like that at all. It made me so uncomfortable. He's sitting on the edge of the bed. He tells her to look under the bed. And I was like, oh, like I was so uncomfortable this
Don't
whole
look.
scene, you know. And then she comes up and she sees the mother, and the mother says a few things, and then we get that horrible cracking sound and that's weird scream, and there's all these things that happen. And so like, to me, it felt like this is what children in that situation feel like, you know. I like, without diving too deep, you know, my dad got custody of me from my mother when I was very young. So some of these feelings are things that naturally, like, that's naturally going to connect with me because of things I experienced as a child. And so, like, these things with, like, the moment, you know, when he calls the ambulance, when he calls 911 and he says, you know, oh, I hurt myself. And he's like, trying to explain how he feels. That was one of the most heartbreaking things to listen to as a child that went through some rough things and as a mother of a son that's the exact same age as Kevin. Like, it was so impactful, but all I got was abuse and neglect. And to me, the entity, this thing, whatever it is just a manifestation of the fear and abuse and the torment that the kids went through. Because even when we see, like, Kaylee get taken, or she goes away and then we see her face and then she disappears into the house. Well, she's disappearing into the house because children who are abandoned and neglected and abused are forgotten. No one cares about them in the sense of a bigger term, because people don't want to get involved, or they don't notice, or they know and they don't want to get involved. That happens all the time. And sometimes, a lot of times, if it is one parent, the other parent knows and is either a victim of the abuse themselves or is too scared to do anything about it. And so that's kind of what I got. And I wondered, because it's not explicitly clear on purpose, but I wondered if the mother got hurt and potentially killed because she did try to interfere. Maybe she did find out that the father was going into the daughter's room late at night when he shouldn't have been. And maybe he was mistreating their son and she figured these things out. And that was what resulted in what happened to her. Yeah. And so I think, but to me, this concept of all of these very normal things like doors and windows and stuff, it's just all of that stuff to me just screams like what it feels like to feel completely alone in an abusive household with parents that are supposed to be taking care of you. They're supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be looking out for you, and they're not. And this goes back to Among the Sleep, because in that video game, you play this female monster that you have to hide from, and the parents are separated. And you learn as you play through the game that the mother is an abusive alcoholic and she's being horrible to this child. And the way that he is processing that is he goes and he hides in the closet. And then when he comes out, his room is no longer his room. It's this crazy world where he can go and be with his teddy bear and his toys, and he has to hide from this terrible thing that's after him. And it's like these two things are like the same. It's like literally the video game version of this film. And so that's where I sat the entire film. And then the end is like, you know, that moment of eventually you get to a point where the abuse is no longer new. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's that repeat of the scream and the blood and the scream and the blood over and over and over and over again. And that's what it's like to be in those situations. And so that was my interpretation of what.
Damn, that's deep. The blood going in and out, the woman screaming, they kept playing over and over. And there's something there. The kids are talking to somebody. This entity, you know, it could be in their heads. You can interpret it that way, or it could be more literal. I took it more literal. Like this demon is replaying their fears and their abuse they went through. They're reliving this over and over and over and over again. Hence, you know, the stuff disappearing and reappearing. The 572, like especially like when they show all the toys and all the toys went into that one corner and the camera. Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like a never-ending,
so cool
hallway in a sense, and the fact that it just ends so like oh shit, it's over. You know what I mean? Like I took it as a demon took these kids after they perished, and they're reliving this hell over and over and over again. That was my assumption of what I thought was going on in this film.
The fact that it has engaged the community the way that it has, and the way that people are talking about it. And I did want to add that scene that you're talking about with the toys, where they all build up to a toy house, specifically a toy house. And you couldn't pay me to think that wasn't intentional. It's that journey of chaos leading up to this this one little, like, I don't know, like, I just thought the symbolism and like some of the shots is just like, oh, so good.
What makes it even better is this was filmed in the director's childhood home.
Yeah,
that somebody else lived in. He had to go and ask these people, "Can I film this movie in your house?"
Don't do it. Hey, I bet. Hey, I hope they got a cut because
I'm sure they did.
That's who he got. Well, yeah, but he thanked them in the movie.
He did.
Like, he does throw a shout out.
He did, and I love the beginning of this film with the title sequence because it was all the titles, the end titles were all in the beginning. It felt very like Grindhouse style.
It did.
Because the way all the credits were right up front, and then it just starts. Closing thoughts. This has been a very interesting conversation, man. I mean, hold on. We all cheer for big bottles of beer for this one. All right, Angel. Chat me up. Closing thoughts. Anything else you want to add to this one? Let's hear your rating.
Yeah, so I also really loved this like 90s blue filter that we got too, because the storyline takes place in the 90s, which has a lot to do. I meant to mention this when we were talking about the way it was filmed, which has a lot to do with some of the things that we saw, like the toys and I have to say this too, that stupid phone.
I was waiting.
That scene when it goes dark and you see this big ass eyes. I literally was like this.
Oh, you mean the toy,
the telephone chatter?
Yeah.
Like, I never want to see that fucking toy again.
Nah, even before this movie, I was scared of that thing.
I was not.
I was never a fan of that.
It was so scary though, the coloration, and then I noticed because I kept like not wanting to look at it, you know, but I was so intrigued at the same time. It's such a weird thing. It's like that's pretty much what it's like to be a horror fan anyway. You're like, it's awful. I want to look at it, you know, and so, but like. It kind of, it was also like, because of the grain, like over the way it was filmed or whatever that is, like, it almost looks like a cartoon. So that made it even fucking creepy.
This film does have entity. There is something there because you see a face, you see an arm across like the hall, whatever that was. You saw that arm creeping in.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're
very
right.
subtle, but it's there.
You're right.
So there is a physical entity present. That's
something
why
going on.
I think
but there was those fade out scenes though. God, those were so well shot for a horror movie. Like
your imagination painted the picture on.
That's what this film's all about. It worked.
And for me, I think the entity was the dad. Because remember when he went to make the phone call and the entity was him
for the hospital.
It made me think to call for help when he called for help.
Yeah,
it made me think of a child picking up for help and the father answering the phone while the child's on the phone and stopping the child from getting help.
Was so. I will say this: I have a 4-year-old. My 4-year-old don't talk that good. I don't know. Like I'm like, if my 4-year-old had to call an ambulance, that's not how that conversation.
You called 911. This kid.
Like it just was one thing that caught. But yeah, no, I thought the scares in this were really, really good. I would give this a 4.5. But I think it is so open that people who aren't going to be patient enough to figure out what this movie is about, they're going to fucking miss it. Like there was somebody who commented on the found footage because we did it as a found footage film.
You did it. You already covered it.
Yeah, because we talked about like the reasons it could be, it's got these elements, right? So which is like a whole nother conversation. But somebody commented and it was like, this is easily the worst film I've seen this year so far. And I'm like,
then you're an idiot.
Yeah,
you're an idiot.
Damn, because it's so. But I also in the same breath, I know it's not going to be everybody's thing.
But that's okay.
Like,
it's subjective.
Think, Rick, I think you said this. You have to be patient. Yep. You have to be
patient. You either love it or you hate it. Yep. Literally one of those movies that there's no middle ground in it. Did I love it? Love it? No, I did love it. I'm also giving this a 4.5.
For me, it's hard to rate this because if I rate this like a 2.5 or a 3, whatever. It's not the same as a film that we like Bloodthirsty, for example, Joe. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the same. Or even if I rate this a 5, it ain't the same as movies I rated 5 in the past because this film is so different.
It is.
I'm gonna go with a 4.
Yeah.
Only because, like I said, for me, I think some of the shots could have been shortened a bit. Yeah. That's my only big complaint. If you do that for all the shots, you go from 140 to like 130 minutes, easily hour and a half. And it's more
127. You can do a
well,
minute
with the
27
credits,
and
though.
still get the credits for the
With the
hour
credits.
and a
Yeah,
half.
I think if you stick to found footage timeline and found footage movies, their sweet spot is an hour 25, an hour 28.
Yep,
That's that like sweet. And again, just another like not like, but it could be like I think
Yeah.
that would have worked really well.
Yeah.
I also
Yeah.
think that, and I know this is hard when you're trying to obviously make feature length films because you want them to be longer. And I don't think that it's such a complaint. Obviously, it didn't lose a lot of points for me because it was longer, but this could have easily been a 1 hour, like really
Yes,
got to
that's
you film.
100%.
Like,
I'm gonna say something that Junior, just to throw him a
Hold
shot.
on, wait, rewind. Who?
JR said something that also I've seen a lot of people say is that the movie was a short hidden within a movie.
And with that being said, we're gonna close this out. Our review of Skinamarink. Now, the director also said he spelled it wrong on purpose, so when kids Google Skinamarink, the actual song, they don't come across this film.
the film.
Oh,
So,
yeah, it took a while to figure out Skinamarink, how to spell that when I was
and just like the old cartoons in that film, we are gonna fade away, but let's not forget we got Angel Voices for the Mausoleum. She already covered this film on her Found Footage Fridays edition with Tom. Definitely check that out. Joe the Psychologist, what you got going on, brother? What you got?
What do we got? I'm gonna go. I'm going on a vacation to the Bates Motel.
Oh, right. That's all you need to know. Bates Motel.
What?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Three Corners of Horror. I'm Ricky Grimes. Like I said, Angel and Joe. With that being said, guys, thank you. Stay scared.